Did you know that the AVMA does not require that a person go through a residency to become a specialist in anything?
Well, did you? If you're curious about that statement, keep listening. I'm Hubert Hinstra, and you are listening to The Vet Vault, where we love finding different pathways, the back doors, the emergency exits, and the scenic routes that get you to where you want to go in your veterinary career. And in this episode, we are learning about alternative pathways to specialization. In our previous episode, you met Dr. Matt Booth, who is the ER Practice Development Lead at Ethos Veterinary Health and a former emergency vet hospital founder and owner. We talked about staff retention in emergency practice, which was a great conversation if you haven't listened to it, by the way. But towards the end of our conversation, Matt just casually dropped this bomb of a question. Did you know that the AVMA does not require that a person go through a residency to become a specialist in anything? Which led us down a whole new conversation that I thought deserved an episode by itself. So here it is. This one is for anyone who is in that stuck place in their career where you are like, I know I want to go further, but I can't, or I don't want to go through the traditional residency path to specialization. Because let's face it, the prospect of 3 years or more of very long hours and usually very bad pay doing a residency wherever you can get that residency, which is probably not in your hometown where you have friends and support and possibly family, is simply not practically possible for many people. In fact, the practicalities of the residency pathway to specialization is a key reason why many people don't end up specializing. Which is a shame, because I think that the profession misses out on a lot of talent when smart, passionate people who can't jump through the necessary hoops are prevented from growing. So their careers just kind of fizzle. So if you are one of those smart, passionate people, this one is for you. I think it's going to make you think a bit differently about the next 5 years of your career. Let's get into it with Dr. Matt Booth, round 2.
Did you know that the AVMA does not require that a person go through a residency to become a specialist in anything?
You told me that when we talked last time, and which is partially why I wanted to follow up, because you dropped that as a little bombshell at the end of the interview. I was like, what? No, I did not know that. So I do know it, but only because you told me. But I still don't know if I believe you.
What the AVMA requires is that it's called an RVSO, Recognized Veterinary Specialty Organization. So from there, AVMA knows all of them as RVSOs. Each one of them knows themselves as a board or a college. So if you hear me say board or a college, they're all the same thing. So you can, the American Board of Veterinary Toxicologists or the American College of Veterinary Surgeons, all board certified specialists. There's 22 right now, AVMA recognized board certification, board certified specialties, okay? AVMA requires that each one of those RVSOs offer residency as route to board certification. However, they do not require you go through a residency to become a board certified specialist in anything. So the next step is, well, why doesn't everybody offer alternative paths to board certification? And I know you're thinking, I know you're answering the question.
I don't know. It's just the norm. It's the crap you have to go through to be able to tick that box.
That sounds like fraternity hazing right now, though. Wouldn't that be odd?
Yeah, I just didn't know it was an option.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think I'll hold off on my opinion about why, and I'll leave that for your audience to kind of just stew on a bit and say, why is that? But here's the cool part.
Well, is it not? Is it part of it? And I'm not gonna. I wonder. It's almost like an initiation. Well, you can't be a specialist if you haven't gone through the same shit that I did for 3 years.
But why?
Seth Godin talks about the dip. Anything worthwhile achieving has to be associated with a dip, with a period of difficulty and sacrifice to make it worth.
You can have difficulty and sacrifices without going through residency. See, to me, residency means like you're guaranteed to have really low pay and really horrible hours. I'm generalizing again, like I'm exaggerating. I know, like if we stack these killer residencies, you can't deny that the education you're getting is off of the charts without question. And so I just want to make sure everybody knows that I believe in residencies 100%. Not all. Here's the thing. If we're moving forward as a profession, should we sit back in these archaic mindsets? You know what is a big red flag to me? I used to tell myself this all the time. If I ever say to you, I've been doing it like this for the last 15 years, that's the first time you say, hey, you need to rethink this job. I've been doing it that way for the last 25 years. Whatever it is, it's like, well, that's really not a good thing. And so I think as a profession, there's other opportunities. And I know there is. I already know there is, and that's what I'm wading into right now. So there are alternative paths to board certifications. A couple of the other colleges have or had them, like New York College of Veterinary Emergency and Critical Care had an alternative path to board certification. And in fact, some of the people that you know that are like super high level players in that world are alternative path board certified specialists. And the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners is one of the RVSOs that offers alternative paths to board certification. Now remember, residency is not what makes the specialist. You know, it has to do with likely the person and the program that they get through and all these sorts of things. And it's really what are you looking for as your end result? So the AVMA also requires that the RVSOs that they go through job task analysis on a routine basis. I think it's like every 5 years. So the job task analysis, are you familiar with this at all? Job task analysis is to say, okay, so if you're a board certified cardiologist and you go to your cohort of cardiologists and you put them through this, it's an investigation. And so then you take that information of what all they need to know and you create an exam based on those different percentages. That's how they create their exam based on the job task analysis, because it's going to change and morph as medicine changes and morphs, right? And so then that exam has to be psychometrically validated by an independent third party on a routine basis as well, so that the exam ultimately is the qualifier for once you pass this, you're of that level of entry level board certified specialist. You're following me, right? Okay, so same thing happens for ABVP. The American Board of Veterinary Practitioners essentially is creating board certified generalists. I'm going to put that in quotations. They're like, I'm a board certified ABVP diplomate in canine and feline practice. So I would call myself a canine and feline generalist. Generalist always in quotes because that's not the official terminology. So we go through that same JTA, and then we have our exam. It's required that it be exam validated, psychometrically validated by the same companies that do all the other ones, whether it's critical care or surgeons or dentists or whoever it is. An interesting thing, because ABVP wanted to ensure the process of becoming an ABVP diplomate through the experiential path. So that's one of those alternative paths that you may have heard. Have you ever heard of ABVP?
Yeah, I've heard of the term, but I didn't really know what it meant. So this is good.
But a lot of people in the States, especially the general practitioners, are very familiar with it. I think more up the other specialists are even more familiar with it. ABVP voluntarily put their program through program validation by the same company that does this psychometric validation for the surgeons and the dentists and some other of the board certified specialists, and it passed. Not just passed, but passed strongly. No, to my knowledge, and that I would love for any of your listeners to tell me if there's somebody that knows more about this than I do. No residency programs will put themselves through a program validation because they don't have to, and there is potential that they would not pass. So they're not required to, so why do it? So this is it's not to diss anybody. What it is, just to show the compare and contrast that what it is trying to show is that ABVP, because it's so hard to understand, like, what did you do? And how did you become that through this alternative path? That's one of the ways to convey the information that it's not just us saying that is what it is. It is an independent third party that everybody seeks to trust for all their examinations. But here's another cool part. We have the only one of its kind. It's about to launch in December, where the enrollment's officially complete now. For ABVP calls it a hybrid credentialing path. Through Ethos, we call it the ER guided ABVP path to board certification. And now this is a third way that you can become a board certified specialist. So you could go residency, you could go alternative path, and then you could go to the guided path, which is essentially a hybrid. Here's what it's a hybrid of. It's a true blend of taking the good parts of a residency and leaving the not so desirable pieces off to the side, the horrible pay, the horrible hours. And it's taking the good part of a experiential path, an autonomous path to board certification, and keeping the less desirable, like the lack of accountability, how to stay motivated, lack of direction, keeping all that stuff out to the side, and blending these two together to create only of its kind in the nation for canine feline practice. Opportunity for people to become board certified generalists. It's primarily for our AVP diplomates. It's a 36-month long program. It has both required synchronous and asynchronous learning. There are case summary writings. There's publication opportunities. So you can eliminate half of your writing requirements by becoming a published author, which we help you from day one all the way to publication in a peer-reviewed journal article, all supported with defined support and defined curriculum. So you can, I don't know if this is how they did it for you at vet school, but you come in first day and they give you a notebook, and probably not like a notebook anymore, but you can literally see every hour of every day where you would be. It's a modern version of that for a person that is actually making a full wage.
I'm going to borrow 30 seconds of your time to tell you about something that I am super excited about, and then we'll get straight back to Dr. Matt. I think I've told you already that I've officially joined forces with the team at Vets on Tour, a great little company that hosts world-class continuing education in world-class locations. We've finally got all of our ducks in a row for our 2025 conference, which will be on the 10th to 15th of August in the snow in Wanaka, New Zealand. Our website is now live at vetsontour.com. That's vetsontour.com. So you can check out the details, but hold off on buying tickets. We're currently selling pre-release discounted tickets to our VetVault Clinical subscribers and to previous attendees. But once those tickets are sold out, which is almost, or on the 10th of March is the cutoff date, we will release our standard early bird tickets, which will save you 20% on our standard ticket pricing. So if you go onto the website now, you'll see standard ticket pricing. Hold off till the 10th of March, put it in your diary, 10 March, vetsontour.com, early bird tickets. It's an epic little conference with great CE, including some live podcasting, but also lots of free time for snow fun or hiking or fishing or just taking in the splendor that is the Southern Alps of New Zealand. And I say little because the event is capped on 80 tickets, so don't dilly-dally. Okay, back to Dr. Matt. So let me clarify quickly. So the autonomous path, one could do that now. That's there now. How would you, if somebody wants to do that, you contact the...
There's two things about that. So yes, anybody can do an autonomous path to board certification through the American Board of Veterinary Practitioners, and you would go to their site and you say, become a specialist, and you just start reading it and trying to track down your own mentor. What we've done is we've taken out a lot of the struggles, and so we've created an environment that for people in our network, any emergency practitioner that's wanting to go down that path, we have all the mentorship built in. We know all the answers to all the questions. We have a virtual team support center where we go through your case summaries. So we've really taken out the curiosity, let you get down to when I say you're going to be a practitioner and you're going to be practicing medicine, and that's what you're going to focus on. And when you have one of these hiccups, like, I don't know what to do here, we got that. We'll take care of that.
Do you know, Matt, is this the pathways you're talking about, is that US only? Like an Australian listener, could I contact you guys and say, hey, I want to do this pathway from Australia. I want to keep my job. I want to still earn a salary and not, as you say, not be abused and have shit paid for 3 years.
Well, I have to tell you, the Vet Partners was part of Ethos. It was part of MBA Compassion First. And sadly, I would be out there all the time visiting you guys. Sadly, Vet Partners is no longer part of Ethos. However, it is currently international in that it's North America. So we have 6 Canadian ER hospitals, and then there's an NVA Canada candidate that's going to be a part of that as well. But we have 6 Ethos hospitals in Canada, and we have some of their folks jumping in on the program as well. Exclusively for the guided, you'd have to, the guided is that hybrid plan I was talking about. You would have to be in that. If anybody wants to be a part of AVP and they're in Australia, we have tons of people in watching. If you are interested in doing it, you just go to the AVP website and you say, become a specialist, and it'll take you right.
And you could do that from anywhere?
Anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's very cool. And it's only for that, in quotation marks, the generalist qualification. There's no similar pathways to become at this point to become an ECC specialist, DACVEC or medicine or something?
No. However, ABV, so have you heard of fellowships? And so fellowships, you already know this, are advanced training for a board certified specialist. You cannot go through fellowship training. Well, you can go through fellowship training, but you can never be a fellow, a trained fellow, until you become a board certified specialist in anything. American College of Veterinary Surgeons has fellowships in things like maxillofacial procedures and minimally invasive procedures. So they have a few fellowships. ACVIM has fellowships that they provide to their diplomates after board certification. ABVP also has fellowships. And so one of their fellowships now is a fellowship in emergency practice. So picture this. I'm a board certified generalist. And then after that, I do 18-month long intensive training under a fellow or founding fellow in emergency practice with a specific regimented curriculum and requirements. And once I complete that and it's approved, I'm now a fellow in emergency practice. Now remember, when you become an emergency practice fellow, you're not a criticalist, because think about really what I'm not saying, it always says emergency critical care in the name. And yes, there's no question the emergency and critical care specialists, they know emergency medicine, like they educate on emergency medicine, like that's not to be debated. The interesting thing is what we'd be creating is more in line with what you would see on the human floor in an emergency room. So right now, if you go into the ER at a vet hospital, picture in your mind's eye who's going to receive you.
You mean in terms of the doctor that you're going to see? It's going to be a GP vet who happens to work at night. It's going to be me. I don't have any special qualifications.
Correct, sir. Now let's go to the human side. When you go into the ER, who do you normally see?
Yeah, would it be a specialist?
That's correct. And so if we can create specialists, one, we're creating highest level practitioners. We're reaching that higher purpose, which is provide the very best patient care and client service that we can. And same goes to the ability to provide to the referring veterinarian at that very highest level. They are experts in the field. They are the board certified generals that I would want. My cardiologist loved me. And not just the cardiologist, I'm always talking about them, but they're like, that's on. I'm not going to get any calls tonight. I think we're good. Like, they love that stuff, right? The surgeons would drop off on Friday nights. They're like, we've got a PU here, or you're going to do it. And I'm like, absolutely, I'm going to do it. Because it had to do with a lot, but part of it was the fact that I was a higher level practitioner. Part of it was because I was a board certified generalist. It makes a difference. And so it's something to consider as you go through this. Now, there are certificates out there, and I think certificates are helpful for people. I think some people really like it because they don't feel as committed to the process, and they're going to become more educated. They're going to be better practitioners. And if a certificate is something that people are interested in, there's going to be a lot of certificates out there for people to obtain. And some of them are through the Veterinary Emergency and Critical Care Society in partnership with the American College of Veterinary Emergency and Critical Care. And they have different levels. There's a student, I think there's an early entry, and then more of an advanced practitioner certificate.
And here in Australia, we have the Australian New Zealand College of Veterinary Surgeons membership level, which is like the step between specialisation, which is, again, that's a significant commitment. It's a good year and a half of serious study and a very serious exam. You don't have anything like that, do you?
No, there's nothing like that. There's been discussions about those programs.
I think I'm going to have to create a show notes for this with links to all of these things, because it's just opened my mind, and I think so many people won't be aware of these, to say, what is next? I am stuck. And traditionally it's just, I can specialize through the residencies, but I love this. I think I'm going to have to create a resource and have you check it and see if it's correct, and go here if there's a little roadmap. Man, we could talk for days and days and days. I love this conversation. I love the way you think about stuff. I think we do have to wrap up. Otherwise, it's going to be like a 4-part series. We do have to do the wrap-up questions. You're not going to get away without that, because we didn't do it at IVEX last year. So first of all, are you a podcast listener?
I am not, but I do know a podcast.
Okay, what's the one that you know?
It's Tales from the Crypts. That's what this Tales from the Crypts. And it's a man named Kevin Cripps. He's a really good Colorado kayaker, whitewater kayaker, and he interviews all of these whitewater kayakers from varying parts of the world with varying experiences, and it's an interesting conversation that a lot of people probably would never enter that world. When you hear some of these stories, you just think they're never going to be real.
Are you a kayaker? Is this why you know about this?
Our family, we're all whitewater boaters. Oh, it's how my partner and I met, and still to this day, it's one of the reasons we live in Rel.
So you're not a podcast listener, which is a mistake, obviously. You have to get with the program, old man. But books that you've read recently that have changed the way you view the world.
Ironically, most people that know me would laugh and say, he's not going to have any books because I know he doesn't read. And I do tell people that I don't really read. It's kind of more of a, I have to keep my image up with the bros on the ski on and all that. So I tell people I don't read. I know how to read. I just don't do it very often. But that's not actually true. 2 books. Number 1 for this podcast is The 5 Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. Read it cover to cover. That goes back to the leadership and the culture, illustrating the value your employees have to you. Like, that's number 1. And then the other one is I'm reading, I don't even know what it's called, but I'm reading the 10th grade textbook for the government class because I'm learning all about the community and government, and man, is that enlightening.
I'm not going to be reading that one. I'm not adding that to my reading list, Matt. Sorry.
No, I will say, though, it's an interesting contrast for people that have never thought about anything other than just how the United States government works. It's very interesting. I encourage everyone to kind of look outside to other aspects of the world and see how other countries are doing their thing. There's a lot of good happening out there.
It's such a different perspective because these days it feels like everybody's trying to focus on all the bad out there. So I love that statement of there's a lot of good out there. Just go looking for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Our pass along question, where I get a previous guest to ask a question for my next guest, and the one that you are landed with, you're a good person to answer this, actually, because you probably have data to back your answer up. What do you believe contributes to a long and meaningful career in veterinary medicine? Everything we've just discussed, the 5 buckets.
Well, it's funny. What I'm going to say is likely, it somewhat does relate to some of the stuff that we talked about. Meaningful career, so contribute to a long and meaningful career. So the long part is, there's always, so I've always come from the ER world. So whenever I hear veterinary medicine, I'm thinking ER. How do you have a long career? I can tell you exactly how to have a good career. You leave on time. The lights never turn off in the ER. There's always more to do. Everyone always needs more help. If you stay, everyone's always going to find more stuff, and they're always going to, until you get wrecked. And then they see you're wrecked and you do it repeatedly, that creates an unsustainable environment. And I can tell you without question that over the course of my career, when I would leave on time routinely, I would get the glares. I would get the people that I could tell were kind of not stoked with the fact that I would leave. And invariably, over the years, many of those same people would come up to me later and they would say things like, the only reason you were still in and able to do it for 25 years was because you always left on time and you always wrote your records like promptly. That would be the long.
I have this idea. I'm going to start making merch for the Vet Vault where I have one-liners from guests that I think are super relevant. And I think leave on time is going to be on a t-shirt. I like that.
Leave on time and support people to leave on time. Make that the norm, not the judgment on who's not staying as late as everybody else. Make the judgment on why are you not out of here? You need to be gone. I got this. It's never going to end, so let me do this. You get out of here, kid. The meaningful is easier for me now because I'm in this role and I have this opportunity to help so many people. And I would like to say for meaningful for the people that may not be in the same role, which is going to be unlikely most of them are going to be. I would say this is a Turpin Mott. Turpin Mott's a man that you should have on here as well, and I'm happy to share his information with you. You create your own narrative. You create your own narrative. And whatever you believe that you want to believe will likely be more true. So whatever it is, you create the narrative, and that's going to be the way to have a meaningful career as far as, just perception and feeling and vibe and helping to create a culture in your hospital.
Question for my next guest.
Question for your next guest. Okay, so here's what I got. taking away everything that we know about veterinary medicine, so making nothing, quote, a standard, or that's how we've always done it, what would you then have in place now? Like, so how would you have things operating now if there were no limitations as far as how things have been up until now with veterinary medicine? Something along those lines. You know a lot about the profession. Now you have to just wipe out everything that's a norm and a standard you just take all these things, infiltrate our day-to-day, how we operate as...
So burn down the house and rebuild it the way it should be, basically.
The way it should be. Burn down the house. Give me 2 or 3 things of how it should actually be.
Cool. Like that one. Matt, that was totally epic. I really enjoyed that. As you could tell, I love talking about this stuff. So I appreciate you coming on twice. And as you said, we'll have to have a round 3 at some point. Thank you for taking the time, and thank you for doing all this important work and the research. It's really, really interesting to all the things that we think we know, to actually look at the data and say, all right, maybe I don't know everything.
Well, I can tell you're very gifted at this. I have listened to some podcasts. But you definitely have a gift, so good for you for making this happen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. Before you disappear, I wanted to tell you about my weekly newsletter. I speak to so many interesting people and learn so many new things while making the clinical podcasts, so I thought I'd create a little summary each week of the stuff that stood out for me. We call it the VetVault 321, and it consists of 3 clinical pearls. These are 3 things that I've taken away from making the clinical podcast episodes. My light bulb moments. 2 other things. These could be quotes, links, movies, books, a podcast highlight, maybe even from my own podcast. Anything that I've come across outside of clinical vetting that I think that you might find interesting. And then 1 thing to think about, which is usually something that I'm pondering this week and that I'd like you to ponder with me. If you'd like to get these in your inbox each week, then follow the newsletter link in the show description wherever you're listening. It's free, and I'd like to think it's useful. Okay, we'll see you next time.